Well, the sun isn't up yet this morning, and Jake is already hard at work. The furnace stayed warm all night long. Didn't keep a fire in it quite all night, but enough that it didn't get very cold. And we're ready to start putting charcoal in there. The vents at the bottom have been plugged up so that it's only going to be the air through the tweer that provides any airflow for this. So it's time for us to start the smelt. Yes, this is just a inexpensive plastic bouncy house blower. I think Tritt and Ty over at Purgatory Ironworks did a video on why these are good forge blowers. It'd be worth taking a look at that video at some point. But this is all we need. We could bump bellows all day long, but there's only two of us, and if we're going to do that, we're going to need more people. So we'll visit this process throughout the day and take little clips here and there. I wish I had a good time-lapse set up, but my camera battery would run out long before the time-lapse of an 8-hour day finished. So as things heat up, we'll be right back. A little bit of sun on the hillside behind the shop, so another hour or so that might actually make it down here to where we're working. That was the first shovel of iron ore that just went in. A notable occasion, and I forgot to mention it. It's about 2 pounds of charcoal to every pound of iron ore, or something like that. So there goes another little bit of iron ore. It's just black sand, so it's dust, but the black sand is mostly iron. And that will slowly come up to heat and melt down and form a little puddle of iron, which will become the bloom down at the bottom of the furnace. When you look at our high-tech blower system here, you'll see not only has a piece of paper been added as a damper to block some of the airflow. It was blowing way too hard initially, but the blower also doesn't connect to the tweer. That allows it to be re-aimed and pulled back and adjust the airflow that way as well, because it doesn't need as much air as this blower puts out. If you were using one of these little bouncy house blowers as a forge blower, you could probably get by with one a little bit smaller than what this one is. You also notice, somebody will comment on this, we are using a piece of galvanized pipe for the tweer. It does not protrude all the way into the fire chamber. It just barely pokes in through the brick, so it will not get hot enough to start off-gassing any of the galvanizing material. So I'm not worried about that being a health issue. If it's going to get hot, that is a problem, but that tweer should not get hot. Now you can see the fire doesn't actually come all the way out the top of the furnace. The combustion is taking place lower down, and that's where the magnetite, the iron ore, sifts down into that. So the fire doesn't reach all the way to the top, and every now and then you'll see the charcoal slump, which means it's created a hollow spot, and it seeks to fill that hollow spot. And that's part of what brings all the iron ore together to form the bloom. You'll also notice that quite frequently there's little bits of charcoal being blown right out of there by the blast from the blower, so we know we got plenty of air. That's also a problem with burning charcoal. It is so light. And there's another scoop of iron ore. Looks like the combustion zone in this has finally reached the top. So we're We're getting a good burn all the way through. It's not a real lively fire at the top, but if you look down inside the tweer, it's a bright orange approaching yellow. We're looking for a white heat ultimately down at the base, and we'll take a look down the tweer here in just a second and see what kind of a heat we've got. But so far things seem to be going well. In about an hour we've used half a 50-gallon drum of charcoal. So we'll have about a 5-hour burn at that rate, I think. So that's looking straight down the tweer. Still a good bright orange, but not up to that white heat that we're looking for yet.
All right, well, the ore we're using is magnetite, and this was collected on the front range of the Colorado Rocky Mountains in the Denver area, Jefferson County mainly, and then down here near Pueblo along the Arkansas River. And the big thing when you're doing a smelt like this, when you're doing any mineral mining, you need to make sure that you're doing it legal. That's a real important part. I have contacted a lot of recreational gold mining clubs and used their locations, and to make sure that I'm not infringing on anybody's mineral rights. Very important. And the big thing with this, normally when you do a smelt, you have a fuel and ore and a flux. And this magnetite, when you pick it up with our magnet here, it picks up a lot of sand with it. So that silica sand is basically our flux, whereas mostly you'd have a limestone. We have a lot of silica granite that's along with this magnetite, and that's going to be our flux.
As the bloom forms, it starts to plug up the tweer a little bit, so we got to run a bar of steel down there and break that free and push it out of the way. It looks like a pretty significant amount of ore gets airborne because it is so light in the updraft of the furnace. So we have started sweeping the surrounding area with magnets and putting the ore back in the bucket so we can give it another chance at getting all the way down into the furnace. We probably salvaged another 10 pounds of ore that would have gotten away from us by doing that. Yeah. It's getting warm enough. So all that fuzzy stuff is good iron ore that we can put right back in the furnace. There's the ore. That's the charcoal. This is starting to come down to the wire. We're going to run out of ore and charcoal at about the same time, so our proportions have been pretty good. It's burning a lot faster than we anticipated, but that's because we're using pine for charcoal and it burns very quick, but it also burns very hot. The hardwoods that burn slower don't burn at as high a heat, so this should be a very good burn, and we should have good results even though it is going quite fast. Jake's working himself half to death here, but he'll be done in just a few minutes though. So the next time we get back to this, we'll probably be looking at the tail end of the whole smelt. Something is starting to plug up the tweer. We hope that's a nice iron bloom. Jake put a test port in the side of the furnace. It's part of the building of the furnace. He's putting a pyrometer in there to see what the temperature is.
Look at that jump. Have we got any more coal we can put in there?
No, I think that's it.
That's all the coal we got.
We are out of charcoal. What's it say?
We are exceeding 2,000 degrees. That is Fahrenheit.
We're at 2,400 degrees Fahrenheit and climbing.
We've topped out. It can't go. So
we exceeded the capacity of the pyrometer and melted the probe off. So we're over 2,500 degrees. Yep, there's the probe.
We've gone past the ability of the probe.
So that is the end of that. I'm afraid now we're going to have to ruin all of Jake's hard work, which means I probably need to put gloves on and go help.
Oh, stay away from that.
Oh, I bet that pipe's hot. Yeah. What do we want to do, Jake?
We want to smash the furnace.
Just push it over. Just knock it down.
What's the best place that we're not going to burn somebody or something?
Probably just straight back, so we don't want to dump it over here where we're set up to forge. So I think probably right here. You want the honors?
Yeah. Let's, well, we still have a lot of coal. This is very hot.
You want to let it burn a little bit, or?
Our tongs are right here.
Tongs are here. We got a stump. We got sledgehammers. Well, this is a sad part of it, but it's also an inevitable part of it. And of course, the chicken wire that was holding it together does keep it together very nicely.
Is that right?
I bet we can just pull the whole thing over to the side, can't we? Up in the bottom, or do we not want to? Yeah, maybe not. Yep. There we go. Well, here we were worried at one point whether the furnace would stay together. There's Bloom.
So
there's a lot of it there. Yep. Let me see if I can zoom in on that here. That lump right there is Bloom. And we're going to take it over to this stump and start refining it. That is solid. Knock all the slag and the junk off of it. This is a real gentle process to start with. And then it's going to go into the forge and get to a part of it that I don't understand, because I've never tried to refine anything like this in the forge.
you want these gloves?
I think I need a better pair of tongs.
Here.
Because those don't close around it up on edge that way. There we go.
Oh, that's pretty.
That's a nice, way more solid than I thought it would be. I suppose we ought to set that one aside and get another one. This is the majority of our Bloom bits. We're going to sift through the rubble from the furnace and see what else we can find. Use a magnet to find anything that is iron, and we'll probably end up with more, but that's a fair amount of stuff. A lot of that's going to be slag and glass and other crud, and we'll have to work that out in the coal fire. That won't get done out here in the yard. And this is everything that's left from the furnace. Only one recognizable piece, the rest is just rubble. But the bricks are not fired. The inside might be a little bit, but most of this is going to be usable clay. So maybe I'll reconstitute that and use it to plaster the back wall of the shop, and that'll be a neat little remembrance of Jake's visit when I look at that wall in the little Earthship edition of the shop.
Okay. All right, so our furnace did not burn quite as long as I thought it was going to. We went just over 3 hours. It burned very hot and very fast. I had a pyrometer that tops out at about 2,700 degrees, and this was well over that. It burned through my sensor, so we probably were around 3,000 degrees on this furnace. So looking at what we pulled out of it, I think that our ore was very fine, and because of that very light, and I think our draft was blowing a lot of it out. So I didn't get the size of the bloom that I was expecting. We got a lot smaller quantity. And I think a lot of that was that we had a blower that was really kicking. So we'll look through and with a magnet, once everything cools down, and identify all the magnetic particles, and see about heating it up in the forge and see if we can't consolidate some stuff and get a billet by the end of the day.
Well, that would be it for our smelt. You're going to have a lot of questions about this, and hopefully Jake will pay attention to the comment section because he knows way more about this than I do. This is my first smelting experience. I've never done this before. We have a bunch of little bits of wrought iron that we're going to have to try to consolidate and refine, and we're going to do that in another video. And I expect to spend probably about 8 hours in the coal forge reforging that to make usable iron. That's where the wrought in wrought iron comes from. We got the iron, now we got to put the wrought into it, so to speak. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found that as interesting as we did. remember, if you're harvesting minerals, make sure you have permission from whoever has the mineral rights, not necessarily just the landowner, but sometimes mineral rights and land ownership don't go together, so it pays to make sure you've got permission from the right people to harvest minerals. And make sure you're safe. This is a lot of fire for a long time, so do it in a good open area. You'll notice we didn't have any vegetation anywhere near the furnace. The closest grass was probably 30 feet away. The closest trees were probably 40 feet away. So we had a good safe area to work, and we had a couple of fire extinguishers handy just in case. And we had talked to the fire department previously to make sure that it was okay that we do this. So it's something you should make sure you're doing above board. It would really be the pits for the fire department to show up halfway into your smelt and say that you can't do that and run a hose down your furnace and put your fire out. But it could happen, so get permission first. Anyways, hope that was good. Hope you can give the video a thumbs up. Love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. Take a little while, watch a few of the other videos. Watch the previous one concerning the smelt if you haven't seen that. There are a lot of other really good videos on smelting iron out there that are worth watching. But then get out to the shop, make something, challenge your abilities, stay safe, wear your safety glasses, and in our next video, we're going to be in the coal fire, refining some wrought iron, and hopefully we'll get enough iron that we can actually make a project out of it.